Hey, Jordan. How's it going? Happy New Year.
Hey Rob, Happy New Year.
It's good to be back. It's good to be back in the office.
Yep,
It's nice.
gang's all here.
I know we've been kind of incommunicado lately. I did want to know, though, how was January 6th for you? I know it's a really tough day. Everyone's processing the pain of that day differently, so I was just wondering how that worked out for you.
A very solemn day indeed for me, Rob.
Yeah.
Reflecting on last year's events. But I was inspired by some of the work we did, some of our advisory work. I saw
Yes.
Dem
Paying
leadership
dividends.
took our ideas. Yeah, wasn't that nice?
Yeah, it's always really a fulfilling feeling when you see these kind of things come together. So when we were able to get, the scene with Dick and Liz Cheney, there, like kind of with the Democrats, kind of showing that kind of bipartisan unity. I know that made me feel really good when we made that go ahead. I know connecting Nancy Pelosi with Lin-Manuel Miranda and doing the whole Hamilton tribute. I spent the day just sitting in a dark room. I turned off all my devices. I couldn't, I just couldn't process the images of people with their feet on Nancy Pelosi's desk and stuff. And I didn't really, I just didn't want to think about it. It was too much. So I turned off the TV, turned off the phone. I just sat in a dark room while all that was playing out. I'm sure the reaction was really great to it, though. I didn't really look into it. I'm sure everyone really enjoyed it, though. So I'm happy we were a part of that.
Right. I think across the board people loved it because when you have a moment like that, when you have Democrats lining up to individually shake Dick Cheney's hand, not only does it say this country is united in defending democracy, it sends a signal to the world that Dick Cheney and the United States respect and observe the sanctity and autonomy of independent, free elections.
Yeah. Yeah, and listen, I didn't always agree with them. You know this. We butted heads. I did not always agree with the things that he did and that he said, but I think that's the kind of trustworthy, honorable Republican leadership that we need to support. And I know all of America and the rest of the world really appreciated that we reached a hand across the aisle and made that happen. I know I saw some critical comments when I did check in on our Twitter feed. A few trolls were indicating that this was something that was maybe we should be leery of, that we shouldn't be supporting this kind of thing. And hey, if these online trolls have a better way of reaching out to moderate Republicans, I would love to hear about it. But people just want to tear us down.
I have an idea.
Okay, let's hear it.
So write this down now, and I'll immediately put it into an email. Let's send it over to Dem leadership. But I think I have the solution. What if Joe Biden and Dick Cheney did a TikTok together?
Oh my God. Well. It isn't Mr. High Roller himself. Mr. High Roller, jet flying, kiss stealing, wheelin' dealin', Jordan Uhl has graced us with his presence here. Very thankful we can finally get back to work here creating this content. I've been toiling away, working class, salt of the earth, toiling away in the content mines this whole time. Well, you've been flying all over the place and all these kinds of extravagant meals and hotels. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
I'm happy that we're able to get back to doing this, though, finally. Jeez.
That's so funny. Yeah. if only. I'm back. I went on... This was my first vacation in, I think, 8 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, working in only nonprofits does not really create create an environment where you can vacation often. And for a while, I was also in grad school while going to work, so I found it extremely funny that higher ups at like Google and Walmart were like popping off about me taking again my first vacation in.
Did it go that far?
Because
I saw that people were very upset with you. People got very upset with some of your critical tweets of Joe Biden. I thought it was just like kind of a K-Hive thing. You're saying it was more serious people than that? I didn't see the extent to it, what it got.
I will not say these are serious people. I'm just saying those are the occupations of some of the people that were like really leading the charge, and I thought that was extremely funny.
You're being canceled.
Oh yeah. I think I've told you before. Like, so this is for people who don't have the background. The last month, I went on like a backpacking trip with my partner to Europe, and that's something that I've never left the country before this. Not a big vacationing family. Like, we couldn't afford it growing up. And then after college, I was like not able to afford it because, again, nonprofits don't pay well. And then I was in grad school, and now I'm finally finished. And it's like, okay, I've got a little bit saved up from literally not doing anything for 2 years because of the pandemic, and booked it last summer.
At a time also for the preemptively shut down people that are still mad and hate listening to this, at a time when it did kind of seem like
I thought it was
things
over.
were sort of returning to
better.
A certain sense of normalcy.
And left early December, kind of like at the onset of Omicron. Got a Eurorail pass, what lets you kind of like take the trains throughout Europe, and then just cheap Airbnb.
They have those there.
But I think the posts that really upset people, and this is like the people that got upset were not initially upset about the vacation, because I was like posting pictures throughout the month, right?
Yeah.
And then the CDC announced they were going to cut the isolation time for infected but asymptomatic people, isolation time in half to 5 days. And for context, today we're seeing a study out of Japan that shows that peak contagious period for people who are infected with Omicron is day like 3 to 6. So not good. And we just saw a hospital in Rhode Island get overrun and see an outbreak among people in the hospital because they had ordered people in accordance with CDC guidelines to come back to work after 5 days. So not good. And because I criticized that, or kind of like made a joke about it, K-Hive people declared that I was a 1%er flaunting my wealth because I ate I had a steak. I posted a picture of a steak that I split with my partner, and a bowl of pasta that cost €20 that I also split with my partner, and people fucking flipped out. It was so funny. It was really, really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, I'd never left the country before. That was like, again, the first vacation I took in like 8 years. It was really, really cool to see just a different part of the world. I was in a lot of walking, a lot of cool walking tours, saw some museums, and also like, I think, and there were people who like I do know and do respect that were like, oh, what was it like traveling with COVID? I mean, it was like easy. It was great. I mean, everyone there wears KN95 masks, like everybody, and it's mandatory in most places. You get your temperature scanned all over the place to go into places. They check your vaccine, which there is like makes sense, like a passport basically. Yeah. You get a QR code. There's testing available everywhere. So we got tested like all over the place, just to make sure we weren't like picking it up and spreading it. And because everyone's masked, because everyone is careful, and because testing is readily available and easily available, and in some places completely free, like it was totally safe. So,
what a concept.
Cool. I know, right?
Interesting. Yeah. No, I was going to say, like, being in Quebec, I have some of that. Like, we have the vaccine passports here, but it's also been like I think a real struggle in a number of other ways, because we're seeing soaring cases here as well. And we're seeing this kind of weird response to it that doesn't really seem to be aimed at stopping the virus. Like right now, it's actually illegal for me to go outside after 10 p.m. I would literally be arrested or fined for leaving my house. Meanwhile, the fucking Gap is still open here in Quebec, so it's still it's a weird, disjointed response, but I do feel a little bit more comfortable here just because of the efforts that the government has taken to ensure that everyone's vaccinated. It's the same thing. But yeah, it's interesting to hear about that, though. How was the steak, by the way? It seemed good. People started dunking on that as well, but was that all right? Was that all right for you?
I mean, like, I didn't, like, go there thinking, like, oh, I'm going to have these, like, crazy meals. Because I don't know, like, I want to try, like, kind of the local cuisine when I go places. And, like, when we got to Italy, which is the end of our trip, stuff there is really cheap. I don't know if you've been there, but like food there is really cheap. You get like a bowl of pasta for like €7, €8. You get a pizza for like €9. And then when we were in Florence, like our tour guide was like, "Oh, while you're here, you should try a Florentine steak. That's like the staple here. It's a big beef and like just cattle city. Like there's like it was like a ton of tanneries and there's a ton of like leather goods everywhere." And it's a byproduct of that, or maybe that's the byproduct of it being a big steak city. Like every restaurant had like Florentine steak. So my partner and I split one because they're like way too big for one person to eat. And I thought it was good. I'm not a big red meat person in general. I just mostly just eat like chicken and rice at home. So like that was pretty good. And like I thought like because people were so mad, like the attacks just like continued to devolve. And like I was sending you some of the tweets that were just really killing me. Someone was like, "That steak looks awful."
Yeah.
Just like, well, it wasn't. Like, it was good. But just like
it's quite
that's
tasty.
Cool. That's probably the last time I'll have steak, for like a year or two. It's whatever. It's insane. One other thing, like I said, like the 1%er thing, like people were like talking about flaunting extreme wealth, and it's just like I had mentioned to you, like that's funny. Certainly looking at like my student loan debt and my bank account and my paycheck, it's like that's a funny accusation, but I can assure you that the 1% is not staying in like $20 €20 Airbnb.
Yeah. Generally they have a higher.
Yeah, they're staying at like the Four Seasons or some 4-star hotel.
Yeah, well, I'm happy you had a good time. The pictures looked really cool. I saw your pictures of Prague, Italy, the whole New Year's thing, or the foot of the Matterhorn. Like it was pretty incredible stuff. And considering like the state that America's in right now, I imagine psychologically it must have been nice to have a couple of weeks to take this kind of stuff in before getting back into the fucking grind, back in the swamp, Washington D.C.
Yeah,
so I'm glad that worked out.
People were freaking out, like, why would you travel during a pandemic? It's literally safer there.
Yeah.
Like, I am more at risk of catching COVID just by going to the store here in the States because people don't wear KN95 masks here because so many people wear cloth masks, and those are, like, forbidden for the most part in Europe. Like, it's more dangerous for me to be in the States. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's weird. Like, then the second we got back, we get, like, pushed into this huge, like, transport car at the airport to go from one terminal to another. And, like, if there was any point throughout the entire trip that I was going to catch it, it's in that thing, because you have all these people flying from all over the place in the States with cloth masks. Like, it's extremely dangerous here.
Yeah. Well, and, like, seeing the reaction to your, like, fairly mild tweets and criticism of the Biden administration, I mean, to me, it just speaks to something that's kind of like a little bit of a broader issue here. It wasn't just about your specific tweet, but there's this like this sort of class of liberals who are sort of like really part of this liberal media scene. That's where they get all their kind of marching orders from. They're devoted CNN and MSNBC watchers. They're really like devoted supporters of the administration. With the Psaki bombs, and they're talking about the Psaki side eye and whatever else, what other meme is going around in this world at the time. And it's been this year-long process of all the great things that we were told over and over was going to be accomplished by the Joe Biden administration, whether it was their big and bold, ambitious climate agenda, all the various sort of social democratic programs that were going to be put in place or kept in place longer, reducing childhood poverty and all these things. Like, we were told over and over all these amazing, incredible things that the Joe Biden administration was going to do. And slowly over the course of this year, that all of that's just been whittled away to basically almost less than nothing. You have one infrastructure bill, which was basically done to literally just to give Republicans a win or to get them on board with something. The whole centerpiece of their agenda, the Build Back Better agenda that they literally campaigned on and built their whole campaign around, has just gone, it's basically been taken away from the table at this point. All their big pushes toward voting rights and all these ambitious things that they talked about endlessly are just not happening, which coincidentally is something that every single random shitty online leftist has been saying from this the entire time. Not just me and you, but all the random Stalin Lover 69 accounts on Twitter who said a year ago, none of this stuff is going to happen. It's going to be a failure. It was very easy to predict. And all of this stuff is coming true exactly the way the people said it was going to. And I feel like these sort of liberals who are really tuned into this liberal media establishment, are really part of these circles, know that. They know that deep down, and they just can't really admit it. And so when anyone, whether it's you or me or anyone, points out these deficiencies, these glaring deficiencies between what they talked about and what is actually happening. Like Joe Biden, when they were talking about coronavirus, what's your plan? My plan is to shut down the virus, Jack. That was what he campaigned on. And the idea that it was somehow unacceptable that hundreds of thousands of people had died under Donald Trump, and a sign of a failed presidency. Meanwhile, now the same or more people have now died under Joe Biden. And they're kind of trying to sweep that under the rug. And the people that were attacking you, they all realize this intrinsically, but they, rather than admitting that they were wrong about this, or possibly just actually trying to ask critical questions about the Democratic Party establishment that they've put so much of their lives and identities into, rather than asking critical questions about why this stuff is going on and what their actual values and priorities are, it's much easier for them to kind of play the blame game. You blame the scapegoats of the month, whether it's Maya Manchin or Cinema. You blame Jordan Uhl on Twitter for being mean to the Biden administration, and because that's much easier than confronting the reality that the administration that they've poured so much time and effort and energy into, and that they've formed these big identities around, has been a complete failure. It's easier to make fun of you for being the 1% than to actually admit that to yourself. And I think that's what we're seeing when we see the backlash like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's people who have this weird parasocial relationship with the party and the party apparatus and the people in power. I don't get it. I really don't get it. Because you could look at how the United States is handling it now, and you could look at things that are within the Biden administration's control. There is no clear, unified guidance on using KN95 masks. The quote free testing, the free instant testing or rapid at home testing rollout has been a disaster. From the limited drop-off spots, I don't know if you saw in Chicago, there's in some areas of the city, there's only 3 boxes in an entire wide swath of Chicago to drop off the tests and at a FedEx box, and they were completely overrun. People are saying the results are taking a week to get back to them, to again cutting down this isolation time when research is showing that's not the best course of action. But what really bothered me about that rollout, and what I tried to point out, was that within those comments, Fauci said we have to keep society going. He was explicitly saying this is to keep businesses open and to keep things moving. That should not trump public health. That's, I don't care. But the thing is, they need a strong economy to run on, because you say, they haven't done anything, and they're probably not going to be able to do anything. And that's why, just look around at Democrats on TV appearances and their social media posts, whatever, and their comments. They're always stressing the strong, robust economy as millions of people quit their jobs, as, there's this great resignation, and inflation is wiping out any type of COLA adjustment, things like that.
Yeah, and they'll say shit it's the lowest number of unemployment claims that we've had in years. And it's well, that will happen when you take away people's ability to file these claims. You literally cut them off for that exact reason.
Yeah, it's like Clinton era economics. They cut off unemployment assistance for people who are struggling to find work during the pandemic. And as these benefits expire, they keep touting these lower and lower unemployment rates. That's it's totally artificial.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. And that's what I mean. It's when people, I think, lash out in that way, it's a way to just avoid confronting that in any serious way, because it's much easier to just be they tried, they wanted to do these things, but that gosh darn Joe Manchin just said no, and there's just absolutely nothing the president of the United States can do to overcome that. And they're already kind of getting out front. They, like we talked about in the last episode with Ken, like people within the Democratic Party know full well what's about to happen in the coming like election cycle. They all know, and you already have folks like the people that were attacking you, getting out front of it, preemptively blaming like people that are on the left for not voting for this in this election that hasn't happened yet. They all know what's going to happen. But like I said, it's easier to lash out than to actually like ask yourself critical questions about this party that you support unquestionably. But I hope that getting dogpiled and getting canceled didn't make too much of an impact in your vacation, because that was it seemed pretty good.
Not at all. I mean, I got to see things that I've always wanted to see. It was in a place that I never thought I would be able to go. And maybe when you have a much more comfortable job, say at a Google or at a Walmart, those things might not be as valuable or important to you, but that meant everything to me. So
these are the salt of the earth working class types that are out there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Do you want to just introduce our guest? We got a pretty good guest. The first episode of the year, actually. It's quite exciting. Pretty good guest once you set it up for everybody.
Yeah, our guest today is Matt Negrin, internet funny man, host of Hardball. Someone who I really appreciate and admire, and a good voice on media criticism. A little cynical, very funny, but he's got a level head. And
we're never cynical here, so this was a big change too. Yeah. So we're always very positive. We're always very positive about this stuff. So
exactly. So a little change of course here. Maybe new year, new us. No, but Matt's great, and he's really good. It's kind of skewering how the media loves to both sides everything, even on critical democracy issues or existential threats, etc. He's awesome. We had a great conversation with him too.
Yeah, it was good. And so of course, like the anniversary of the Capitol riots was a few days ago, and I think this is something that like since it happened on this show, every time we've talked about, we've tried to have a little bit of nuance about it while taking it seriously and not just hand waving it away as being a big joke and kind of an ominous sign of things to come, while also like laughing at the sillier aspects of it and laughing at the sort of like very hysterical liberal reaction to it. I think that's been something we've attempted to do on this show. We attempted to do it in this conversation as well, I think successfully. Very good conversation. Folks, before we get to Matt, I have to remind you, we don't talk about this very much, but as Jordan was saying, we're not the 1%. And I probably don't point this out often enough. It's always been kind of awkward to talk about, but you can, in fact, subscribe to this show. Many people do, and many people enjoy this. You do get bonus content. There's a number of other perks that you can get from subscribing to the show. I'm being a bad host and producer by never mentioning this. I always neglect to mention this. But it is true. So if you do like this program, folks, just a brief reminder, please subscribe over on Substack. You probably noticed that we had to, just kind of out of necessity, start scaling back on the content that we do with this show. We started off doing 2 episodes a week, and just because of the financial aspects of it and the time management aspects, we've had to kind of scale that back. We would like to get to a point where we start doing 2 episodes again, but to do that, we do need people to subscribe to the show. So if you enjoy The Insurgents, we try not to bug you about this stuff too much, but please subscribe for $5 a month over on Substack. I see all the other Substacks that are just relentless about reminding people about this, and I always tell myself, like, God, we really need to tell people sometimes.
Yeah,
that
we never do.
I know. I don't know why. I don't know why we don't do that. This has been the thing with Twitch for me. So once you get used to doing Twitch, you just get used to just like telling people to give you money. It just becomes part of the natural cadence. So I wanted to remind people briefly, if you enjoy the show and you'd like to hear more Insurgents episodes, you can, but if you're not subscribed, we do encourage you to subscribe over on Substack.com. And if more people do subscribe, we will be able to sort of expand the scope of the show and what we're trying to do. And we got a lot of good stuff planned for the new year. I'm excited about it. And I just wanted to remind people that they can, in fact, give us money if they want to.
Yeah. And Rob will come to your house and cook you dinner if you subscribe.
That's right.
That is a verbal contract, totally enforceable.
Yeah.
So please take them up
binding
on that.
by law. That's right. We can run a classic poutines.
Oh,
Quebecois
nice.
delicacy.
Yeah, that's
Everyone
right.
loves it. Yeah. Let's get to Matt Negrin. Again, we really enjoyed having Matt come on the show. It was fun to talk to him. I think you're going to enjoy it. He's going to be joining the program right after this.
Let the scripted banter begin.
Yes.
So while we were dealing with the technical difficulties, Rob, Matt and I used that time to kind of shit on you for being a dad.
Okay.
We were deciding,
Yep.
we're not deciding, we just declared that being a parent must suck unless your kid's a gamer, and then you think the optimal way forward and the optimal parenting move is just to have them grind your battle pass for you since they're not paying rent.
Yeah, it's like a requirement for them because they're there, so you might as well get them in. And I'm not talking about Mario Kart, little kid games. I'm talking Ghost of Tsushima multiplayer mode. Throw them in
side
the
missions,
deep end. Yeah, exactly. Oh, I can't
be doing that stuff.
Gotta help Masako track down her family's killers. What the hell? 9 episodes of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, you just don't get your allowance this week unless you finish all of my side quests.
Yeah. I'm trying to train him on this stuff, but he's only 6, and so far he can't get the keyboard and mouse thing. And I'm you gotta get better.
That is sad because when I was 6, I was really going hard into role-playing games. So I feel like they're behind the curve. Also, Mavis Beacon starts teaching you when you're 4. So there should be a Mavis Beacon for games. That's just here's Wind Elemental and here's what it's weak against. Just learn that shit.
I really failed as a parent here. I really feel inadequate at the moment.
This is the things that I say that's oh, this person's not ready to be a parent at all. They have no idea.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly easy right now. I just started doing distance learning for here we've been able to kind of avoid that, and he was able to go to daycare for the last the early stages of the pandemic. It was still being done in a pretty safe way. He just started kindergarten this year. And he's been in school throughout this year, but now because of this latest surge on these restrictions that's come into effect over the last couple of weeks, he's trying to do kindergarten distance learning, and that's a lot of fun. It's an amazing experiment in that it's almost impressive how they've come up with something that everyone hates, everyone involved in the whole process, kids, teachers, parents. Every single person involved.
How do you play? How do you build blocks with someone else? What if they want to build their own structure?
Well, that's just the problem. Yeah, it's basically a moment by moment process to try and make sure he's keeping engaged with what's going on. He wants to go and get his werewolf costume and mask and put it on. I'm just okay, I understand that you want to show the camera your werewolf costume, but we got to do other stuff right now.
Let me get this straight. You're saying that a group of immature, not fully developed brain-wise individuals have their own agenda and aren't working together. Wow! If only there were some sort of comparable body that I could draw a link to. Nothing comes to mind.
There we go. This is why Matt is an A-lister. The expert segue. The expert segue.
He's a pro.
That's why we're here to talk about. We're talking about the House Committee on fish licenses today, and that's what I really was going for with that.
But Matt, we ask everyone when we start these conversations the same hardball question, just so we know who we're dealing with.
You can't actually say hardball without paying.
Is that trademark?
Yeah, you can't. Yeah,
that's his personal. That's his IP. So.
Yes,
sorry.
Yeah,
we respect IP on this program.
Right down the middle. We're asking you this question right down the middle.
Yeah, you can ask me right down the middle questions.
We've asked everybody who comes on the show, so now it's your turn, and we've kind of got a hint of what your answer is going to be. But Matt, are you a gamer?
I'm a big gamer. I'm not a WoW person. I'm not MMORPG. I am a tabletop RPG. I am a Final Fantasy RPG. I am a Tetris Effect person. I am a Beat Saber person. So yes, I'm definitely a gamer. Very much into role-playing and leveling up, and rise and grind really applies to me. First thing I do when I get up is log into my PlayStation and just do 3 hours of low-level battles to get myself equipped and get all the items and everything. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, we endorse the Sigma grind set here, and that's part of it. So
I feel like I could be, and obviously I don't want to denigrate anyone's military service, but I feel like I could be a troop just based on my commitment to grinding. The amount of,
I think it counts.
It's the same thing. Yeah, for sure. And I don't even play Call of Duty. I just I'm pretty into the fantasy stuff, but it can't be that different, right? Like slaying Valkyries is like, that's tough. God of War, come on, like that's real military stuff.
It's probably tougher than military stuff. I think we can all agree.
Yeah.
Well, and like Nate Silver was pointing out this week, I was just talking about my doing the distance learning stuff. I'm basically a veteran too at this point.
Yeah.
Right.
More or less the same thing. So
God,
we're all heroes. Listen, we're all heroes, and we don't need to get into the who and how and why and what everyone did.
See, we don't need to call ourselves heroes, but if the three of us call each other heroes, then it's fine. It's selfless.
That
and
works.
It's good. Yeah.
And if I get the odd discount or somewhere like better seating on planes and stuff, I mean, I'm not going to say no either.
You walk into an airport and you're like, I'm a Diablo 2 vet. Can I get boarding group 2?
You mentioned tabletop RPG, and I've talked about this a couple times on this show and elsewhere. I've never played Dungeons and Dragons, and I've always wanted to, but I don't know. Like, my friends don't play, and I've recently asked Carlos if I could like put together a game on a show.
Carlos who?
Mazza.
Carlos is my DM. Do you know that?
I know he loves it. Yeah, that's why I asked him.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Are you like trying to angle in? Was this
why we invited you on.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
I literally was talking to him today about, because we have to delay our session today because one person in it has COVID, obviously, because everyone has COVID. So we're waiting till next week. But I was talking to him about so like I'm a DM in another group. This is actually an appropriate thing to talk about. So I have a group of friends in Philadelphia who wanted to play D&D. Like 2 of them have played it, 3 of them have not. So I was like, you know what? I want to try my hand at being a DM. And I was like, what can I do that's Philadelphia based? What would be fun? So I decided to do D&D 1776. So it's the founding of America, and it's like an alternate timeline where like they can decide how they want to like try to infiltrate like the Constitutional Congress and stuff. And it is so exciting because like they're obviously all, now in 2021, 2022, they're like anti-slavery. So they have these ideals, and they're running right up against this like economic reality that's like, how are you going to convince these people to not be slavers? Like, it's the economy of America. So it's like kind of all about diplomacy and whatever. And it is some of the most fun I've ever had playing a game, because it's like, I just listened to American history and like a lot of there's a really good podcast that's all about Black history that's been like overlooked, that we don't learn about in schools. And like Native Americans and like Canadians, Indigenous Canadians, like all of these things that I never learned about. So my research for doing the campaign is just listening to these podcasts and then working that stuff into the campaign, and it is so fucking fun. So anyways, if you guys want to pop into that one, always looking for guests. So that could be your intro into D&D. It is extremely fun. And now that I've lost your entire podcast audience, we can talk about whatever you want.
No, that sounds sick.
Yeah, that sounds like a really interesting angle. Yeah.
It is fun. And it's also, I don't know, it's just like D&D is so great. And Carlos got me into it. And I feel like I didn't really know what gaming was until I started doing it. It's a whole nother way of looking at like how you play, just like for fun. It just like redefined what fun was for me. So anyway, sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
That's actually the best kind of answer that you can possibly hope for.
Yeah. Okay.
It's worse when someone goes, "Yeah, no, not really," and then we go,
Mario
Kart.
Yeah, Rainbow Road. Rainbow Road 1, Rainbow Road 2, the one where you jump off and there's this trick in it. Yeah, that's really fun. That's cool.
Yeah, I don't know if that counts, but we're kind of generous with that question, just so the rest
we try
of the
to make people
conversation
feel
doesn't get
comfortable.
tense.
Even with non-gamers, we treat them as like human beings.
You allow non-gamers on your podcast. That's like incredibly inclusive of you.
Mm-hmm.
We like to censor diverse voices and other people's lived experiences. So
you have to get all the sides.
One of the people who tried to give us the Rainbow Road answer was David Sirota.
And no way.
Yeah.
That's great.
And I'm trying to segue here.
Another great segue. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, thank you. I learned from the best. I learned from Matt.
Segue hour.
David helped develop the story for Don't Look Up, which just came out. And have you guys seen it? Have you guys both watched it?
I have. Yes.
Yeah.
Rob, you're silent.
Yeah. No, I did. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I thought it was great. And if people haven't watched it, I would highly recommend it. It's a funny take on American ignorance, and especially the media's kind of just proclivity to sensationalize stories and focus on things that don't really matter. And one of the ways the media was caricatured in this movie was that they kind of downplayed the severity or didn't believe it or tried to like make it fun and upbeat as this comet was careening toward the planet and threatened to wipe out all of civilization. And Matt, when we talked about it last week, you had some interesting observations that I think would set up a larger conversation on how the media covers things like climate change, and also just kind of how we saw the media over the past year cover Republicans in the aftermath of January 6th, and now we're 1 year past that. So I'm curious, both of you, what you thought of the movie, and also, Matt, I would love for our listeners to hear kind of your dissection of how the media was caricatured in that movie.
It makes sense to me. I'm glad the movie exists. I think it raises like a really huge question, which is what will happen if our media environment, if our just general environment doesn't change as like huge calamities continue to come. So it's good that people are talking about it. No matter if it's like good, bad, cringy, comedy, horror, reality TV, like I don't care. The more that people are aware that misinformation is a poison, I think the better. That's a really important topic, and it kind of sits in the back of everything and isn't alarming. So for that reason, I'm like very glad the movie exists. Like people talk about it, that's good. I thought the media portrayal was like pretty funny. I think to me, it slightly missed what I consider the most dangerous part of how the news media treats these big issues. So in the movie, they like put a lot of emphasis on this like Ariana Grande breakup, and it's like, oh, there's a meteor headed to the planet that these scientists discover, and they're like, but first, like, what's going on with this like huge Hollywood breakup, whatever. And that obviously makes the point that the media focuses on trivial bullshit when they should be focusing on like existential threats. Great, got that. The point is taken. I think that is mostly true. However, I think the real problem with not just climate change, but COVID and like sedition is that our news media does cover those issues, and they cover them pretty poorly. They give an outsized role to the people who are escalating those calamities, who are denying them. For example, in climate change, we give a lot of airtime to climate deniers. For COVID, we give a lot of airtime to people who say the vaccines are going to turn you into like a turtle, and saying that COVID is a flu. Masks don't work. All of these really like not just dangerous things, but like they are the kind of the people making our COVID environment real right now. We keep putting them on the air. I think like, a few weeks ago, Ted Cruz was on CBS, like on Face the Nation. Like this is insane. Like this guy helped plan the January 6th attack and was like rooting for the overthrow of democracy. And he's just like on talking to Margaret Brennan about how like Democrats are ruining the country. So to me, the media issue is that they give too much weight to the people who are causing the problems. And if a meteor were headed toward the Earth, I think in Don't Look Up, the media in that world would be saying, let's bring on the people who say there is no meteor. And I guess that's more realistic than what they were going for. But I don't think both of the Ariana Grande stuff is still really good to point out because they do that also. But I just don't think that's the most important criticism of our like general news environment.
Yeah. I thought overall it functioned really well just as kind of a piece of media criticism, although, maybe there's things that could have been different or whatever. But one thing that they kind of launched the movie with this kind of assault on the critics, which I think created kind of a backlash. And I thought it was kind of a weird way on social media to kind of like get out and start promoting the movie when it was coming out, and suggesting that anyone who's criticizing the movie was like somehow bad or corrupt. And that kind of created people who were like, okay, well, like now I don't even want to watch it. I know people there, I saw a lot of criticism too about being kind of like light on actual solutions. Like it was heavy on this kind of like heavy-handed satire, which was kind of function of this media criticism without really proposing any concrete solutions for how these issues get fixed. But to me, it's like, that's not really generally what the point of satire needs to be. What it does function as is something that calls attention to a really serious systemic problem in like Western media and how it functions, especially when it comes to this climate change stuff. And I think overall, like it's getting seen by people, and it's like getting this message out there to people about this issue that exists. So I think in that way, it succeeded really, really well. And I think the broadness of the satire helped that. People kind of pointed out that it was so obvious and so hit you over the head in terms of the satire, but I mean, I think that's kind of essential. I think that's almost important at this point to try and go that route and to ensure that these ideas are kind of getting out there. And yeah, it doesn't really propose concrete solutions for how to fix it, but I don't think that's necessarily what the purpose of that kind of satire is supposed to be.
I would love if a post-credit scene after every movie that's just like a no parody, no satire, just like, hi, I'm the person who made this movie. I just want you to know, here are the solutions. We need to break up the corporate media. We need to install the following people. I don't think that would fit very well.
No.
Did you watch past the credits for the end, like the post-credit scene?
Oh, I didn't actually.
So I thought this was really clever. So if people have not watched it yet, maybe pause and watch it or skip ahead. But there's a post-credit scene where Jonah Hill's character climbs out of the rubble. He somehow survived because he was in that bunker, and he's the only person left on Earth. And he looks around, and he immediately whips out his phone and starts filming a video. Hey, yo, what's going on, guys? I'm the last person on Earth. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I thought that was a really funny detail, because also there was also a nod to how much of this is fueled by social media, and that was just kind of interwoven in different montages. They would just be kind of screenshots of tweets, disbelieving that a comet even existed, or that people are lying to you or attacking the scientists. And he's just so committed to this kind of addiction to engagement and his personal brand that even still, I thought that was a really funny detail. And that, I think, reflects, they didn't get into it specifically, but I think it reflects the way specifically Facebook really fuels a lot of this, and especially with January 6th, but to an extent some climate denial, how these things just kind of fester. And when they shifted their algorithm a couple years ago to focus on groups, that's when things really exploded, because you had these kind of unmoderated spaces where people could just whip themselves into a frenzy, share things that weren't true. Other people would just kind of gullibly believe them and take them to heart. And here we are with one of the most toxic platforms infecting the minds of millions and millions of Americans and people around the world. We've seen violence and genocide carried out because of Facebook. And as we thought a couple months ago that Facebook was really going to feel the burn when blowers started speaking out, they rebranded, changed it to Meta, and now all the news coverage about the company is just, wow, they're getting into the metaverse.
Ooh,
and nobody cares anymore.
Yeah, I think
we've just collectively moved on.
I think as it relates to climate change specifically, a really harmful side effect of, and this is bridging climate change in January 6th in an expert way that only I could do, and that's why I'm here. A really harmful thing is the lionization of Liz Cheney as the democracy hero, because she broke ranks with all the brainwashed psycho Republicans who are January 6th was amazing, and she's no, it wasn't. The election was real. Donald Trump lost, and we need to expose what happened on January 6th. Obviously, all of that is true, but as a result, and this is because there are no other Republicans left doing, Adam Kinzinger, sure, he's not even in Congress anymore. Liz Cheney is the only one kind of standing up for what the right thing is. That makes everyone in the media say Liz Cheney is build a statue to this person. Her crime was to tell the truth. She is a brave warrior. It kind of overflow, this overcompensating for how horrible she is on climate change, which is she is a climate denier. She is one of the worst climate deniers, and by virtue of building her up as a January 6th hero, the media is making a very, I don't think this is unconscious, this is a very conscious decision to not talk about any other thing she's done. The fact that she loves guns and hates gun control, and after school shooting she's I don't want to do anything. Or after a huge climate report comes out, she'll give the opinion of actually climate change is not real or whatever. I remember years ago she was doing an event with Dick Cheney, her dad, and like someone asked them about like, what are you going to do about climate change? And they both looked at each other and laughed, and they were like, nothing. Like, what do you think we are? Yeah. So cool. Like the idea that this Republican is now being heralded by the mainstream news media because of her stance on January 6th, I think to me indicates like years from now when we actually are seeing the very physical effects of climate change on a mass scale, we are going to be leaning into like Liz Cheney, and it's going to be catastrophic. And that is, climate change is arguably a bigger issue than January 6th. It's just like, we don't see like, you know, tsunamis hitting the coast right now. But when that happens, are people going to be like, oh man?
Well, I mean, we already are seeing the catastrophic effects of it. I mean, just like some of the events that have been happening over the last year in BC, for example, the wildfires, the massive flooding, like we are already seeing these catastrophic effects, which is like, it is one of the sort of really odd, the odd effects of kind of living through this is you see these things really start to happen. These things that we were told, you know, weren't supposed to be part of our lives for decades and decades really starting to happen. And you still see the media kind of focusing on this other stuff that's less important. And, you know, mentioning Liz Cheney, I think, is really important in the way that the, you know, media have held her up as this kind of, you know, altruistic figure or someone that should be liked and respected as part of the Republican Party, or Dick Cheney. I mean, like, Dick Cheney literally is that you saw that whole situation the other day where him and Liz were like in the chamber when they were, you know, holding this event, and you had all the Democrats rushing over to shake his hand and stuff, and you have this kind of like this narrative about Dick Cheney forming, like, you know, I may not have agreed with everything Dick Cheney did, but at least he didn't try to steal elections and stuff. This is a man who literally oversaw, like, quite literally a stolen election in 2000. And so that is just completely being whitewashed. And like that's the kind of, like you're pointing out, that's the really dangerous thing about this moment is that for as extreme as the right is getting in America, it's providing cover for all these very also dangerous and bad people to kind of rehab their images. And you have people in the political class and people in the media just falling over themselves to help participate with that image rehabilitation project. And it's a really dangerous situation.
They love to do it. They love to take these really bad people and just say, what if they're good now? What if none of the bad things were real? Because the only thing that matters is the present, and there's no context for these people. I think it would be so ballsy of any of the TV journalists or print journalists who do interviews with, like live interviews or whatever, with Liz Cheney to be like, can we pause for a minute and like just talk about your climate denialism? Because like you're wrong about that. Like, why can't they do that? I do not understand. She does so many interviews. She does press conferences. Like, why can't they do that? Is it because they don't care? Is it because they know it would like antagonize her? I honestly, like, to me, as someone who used to be a journalist, I would be really interested in doing that selfishly, because it'd be like, maybe I could get a Drudge link out of it or something. Like, and someone would tweet about it. I don't know. Like, what's stopping them? I don't know. It kind of befuddles me.
It's all of them. You see, like, Trump's, one of the comms officials, I can't remember her name, but she just got picked up at CNN after a short stint at the Hill.
Alyssa Farah? Is that who you're talking about?
Yeah, who was like gleefully celebrating kind of the obstruction of information at the onset of the pandemic. And do you remember that tweet where she's like, oh, we like to keep people on their toes? It's like, this isn't a fucking game.
She was Trump's communications director at the beginning of COVID and through the end of the Trump administration. Like, she was a bad person. She hid information. Yeah. She is responsible, as everyone is in that communications office, for the spread of COVID in the country. And now she's a CNN contributor. I can't believe
all
that,
the rats
like,
jumped
no
ship at the very end. Right. A couple of them got book deals, and everyone's like, "Oh, well, thank you for standing up for democracy." Like Bolton, obviously one of like the worst foreign policy figures in the last several decades. Stays on for a while. The guy wants, he hasn't met a war he hasn't liked or an invasion he hasn't liked. And then at the very end, writes a book with the Hamilton reference as a title, and everyone's like, "Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you for your patriotism." Like, come on. Well, how do you not see through this? This is such a cynical play.
Also, like, I mean, come on. The news media loves wars. Like, that really that really fits, I think, with like they would be quick to celebrate Bolton as like a truth teller and a war guy. Like, okay, yes, please. What else do you got?
One is like the imagery rehabilitation of George W. Bush speaks to that as well, where they're like, it's the same kind of thing with Dick Cheney, where I didn't like him at the time, but he stands up for democracy. He's stood up for these democratic values, and just this massive illegal war in which millions of people were killed and tens of millions of people were displaced. One of the worst human rights atrocities of the modern era just kind of gets swept under the rug. Like, mistakes happen. Mistakes,
things can happen. Even on like the social issues that we now consider to be like journalists are safe to say like it's okay to be gay. Like Dick Cheney weaponized gay marriage in 2004 to win an election and make it like an evangelical, like a horrible thing. And I guess that didn't happen either. Like none of the things that these people did ever really happened, as long as they can come out now and be like, actually, sir, Donald Trump, Mr. President, sir, you did lose the election. Like,
all is forgiven.
And you mentioned this earlier, but one of the figures that kind of gets a pass on some of this stuff is Ted Cruz, and he's been through the ringer in right-wing media because he initially called January 6th an act of terrorism, and then basically went and begged for forgiveness on Tucker's show this week. Have you been following this kind of like Ted Cruz like flip-flop show?
I'm so bothered by this because on the one hand, January 6th was a terrorist attack. Like it actually was. And I hate that Ted Cruz said something that like I might also say. That makes me like so uncomfortable in my own skin. And I have to like do like nightly reflections and say like, okay, Ted Cruz said we will not go gently into that good night right before January 6th. He called for an insurrection. He is responsible for what happened. He is not the same as me. I am not Ted Cruz. Like it's very awkward. I think a lot of analysis has been made about this already that like is basically what I would say, which is that like this just shows the state of the right-wing media and like Tucker Carlson's influence over the direction the party is going. That like someone like Ted Cruz, responsible for January 6th, horrible person, like absolutely like mendacious brute who will throw his kids under the bus for whatever reason, has to go grovel like in the saddest like. Anything that makes me feel bad for Ted Cruz, I'm like, this sucks. Like, I don't want to feel bad for this guy. He's a horrible guy. And Tucker Carlson is now doing this, like, I hate to say this too. Tucker Carlson did like, I mean, first of all, he's a liar. He's wrong about everything. He's like a purveyor of misinformation. But his interview with Ted Cruz was like, I'm not going to take that for an answer. And he was like, whoa, wait, you say this, you're a Harvard guy. You're a debater. Like, I know that your words are deliberate. So if you said this more than once, doesn't that mean you believe it? Because this was Ted Cruz tried to say it was like a poor choice of words. And it's like, fuck, like, that's true. Like, you're right, Tucker, and you're like not letting him off the hook for that. Why am I watching like a good interview with a person I hate, conducted by a person I hate, and I'm like, this is one of the best things on TV I've ever seen. I can't fucking stand it. Like, why can't real journalists do interviews like that? It kills me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been following it. Yeah.
See, okay, what are your feelings on that? Rob, what are what's your takeaway from this?
Well, I do think it's very funny how like there's been this kind of roller coaster when it comes to conservatives talking about this, where they all like it wasn't just Donald Trump and his few people, but it was like this whole movement after the election to be like, no, the election's being stolen. It was in no uncertain terms. They were all saying this. They're all saying like we are literally going to storm the Capitol on January 6th. Like this was like an open thing that they were all talking about in the media. There was big bus tours being organized. All these conservative influencers talking about it. They were all very clear about what was going to happen. And then so this day comes, and the thing that they all said repeatedly was going to happen, it does in fact happen, and these people do somehow get past the Capitol Police, which is a whole separate thing that I'm not sure about how that was allowed to happen. But anyway, so then this very funny thing happened where like then everyone gets mad, and then everyone's mad about it, and then you have all these people trying to distance themselves from it, being like, whoa, no, I never said we were going to storm the Capitol. We just said we were going to go have a rally, even though it's all very clear that that's what happened. And then so like the funniest example of this was like the I don't know if you saw that Kevin Sorbo tweet. He was like, history is being made. It's like the new Declaration of Independence. It's the new July 4th. And then like while everything's happening and everyone's starting to get mad about it, it's like, well, no, mate, you need to cooperate with the police. And then it devolves into like, this was actually Antifa doing this. This is undercover Antifa agents that were doing it. And then so as the year has gone by and it's been spun and it's kind of been more acceptable to again say, actually, it was fine what happened and in fact good. So that's all of a sudden going away. And now they're back to kind of lionizing these people that they immediately threw under the bus. So it's funny seeing people like Ted Cruz who have tried to kind of ride these waves of like just saying the thing that's going to make the least amount of people mad and then having all this contradictory statements shown right in front of him and having to kind of squirm his way out of it. That's been kind of an enjoyable thing, but it's been definitely funny to watch these conservatives sort of go on this ride over the last year of trying to thread this needle of we support it, now we don't support it, and now we do again. And then try to like still be taken seriously afterwards.
Do you remember the clip of the woman coming out of the Capitol who was maced and she was like screaming and she was like, I just got maced, and like the person's like, why? She's like, we're storming the Capitol, it's a revolution. Like, to me, that is kind of every Republican who was like, yeah, we're doing it, and then like they get slammed for doing it and they're like, oh, what the hell, like I thought this was 1776. And now like for a brief period of time, as you said, it was like, okay, this has no place. Like, violence has no place. We need to condemn, like, whatever. And then, like, I don't know, 18 minutes later, they were like, you know what? Like, it was the right thing to do. We should probably just do it every time now. And I think, like, as we're going to see, like, they will just overturn an election in 2024 without violence. Like, they'll have the House of Representatives and can easily do it. And literally nobody is stopping them. So,
well, that's true leadership by Joe Biden. He's going to ensure that no such event occurs in the future by just rolling out the red carpet for the next couple of elections to ensure that they can just do things completely by the books.
It would be so funny if he were like, I will intentionally lose this election so that the Republicans cannot overturn it. Like, democracy must be prevailed.
Oh my God. But there were some monuments erected in New York to honor the figures, the heroes of January 6th. Is that right, Matt? Could you tell us about that?
I'm happy to. Yes, the Daily Show put up these heroes of the Freedom Surrection is what we called it. It actually started as we were talking about like how COVID has been turned into this like huge misinformation like warp of like, what COVID, was it a big deal? Was it bad? Who did it? And now, like, the way that Republicans talk now, it's like COVID is not real, and also Joe Biden did it. So we wanted to do like a heroes of we called it the pandemic, as like pandemic, but it's dumb. And we wanted to do monuments for that.
Its ass.
And yeah, we really did. We really got the pandemic. And then that turned into like when January 6th was like getting bigger and bigger after January 6th, I think we were like, well, actually, we should do it for this actual failed coup. So the monuments we put up in like right outside the Flatiron Building in the Public Plaza in New York, and it's literally like nothing on these monuments is false. It is a tribute in a kind of like the way that, you know, the Confederacy loves their like Civil War heroes to the people who tried to overthrow the country and failed. So we have like Trump, Giuliani, Cruz, Josh Hawley, our wonderful white supremacist king, Tucker Carlson, Steve Bannon, Lauren Boebert, and of course Marjorie Taylor Greene. And I think it got like a lot of attention on social media and like some write-ups and stuff, and like we're really like happy about that. And I think it makes sense to me that like people had the reaction they did because these were like these are people who led a violent insurrection. And like, if, you know, if a general in the South led a violent insurrection and lost, and they put up a statue to him, why can't we do it for these people? So unfortunately, the woke right-wing mob wants to tear these monuments down now because they don't respect our heritage. And I think
cancel culture.
It's frankly inappropriate. And you know, next thing you know, they're not going to want us to talk about January 6th in our textbooks. And I think that's really unfortunate. I think it's a slippery slope. What's happening in this country?
Yeah, they want to censor our education. They want to control what we can learn. There's no other way we could learn about this than through these monuments. We have to keep them up.
Yeah. Like, and every time you see a monument, you're like, what was it that Marjorie Taylor Greene said? Was it her who she was like, if I were a black person and I saw a monument of like a Civil War hero, I would feel proud because of like how far
Jesus
I've come
Christ.
or something like that. I don't know if it was, I think it was her. I can't remember if it was her, but some Republican said that, like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I guess that's how I feel about these people then. Okay.
Matt, I'm wondering, like, whether you've had any like how you feel about sort of threading the needle between talking about January 6th and taking it seriously, when it's kind of become more difficult to do so. I mean, it's become kind of popular online, especially to kind of just hand wave it away and be like, oh, it wasn't a big deal. It was just funny. And we tried, I think, to have a little nuance when we talked about this on the show, and by treating it seriously, to talk about the ways that the right, not even as an individual event, but as in a part of a timeline of the extreme right in America getting more and more radicalized by these conspiracy theories, more willing to like engage in kind of violence in order to enact these kind of undemocratic goals, while also acknowledging that, it was on its surface quite silly at the same time. The enduring image of the MAGA gam that I've talked about a number of times, just like waving her little flag in the U.S. Capitol building. It was just like bizarre moment.
I'm sorry. I have a correction. It breaks my
Is
heart
that
to tell you this.
disinformation?
That is disinformation. That was
man.
at some like Wisconsin lobby day or something like that. That was not at the Capitol.
Well, here I am doing it myself.
You've just been
shameful.
corrected.
Yeah.
Apologize.
Okay, I apologize to our viewers for insulting the MAGA gam. But overall, still, it was kind of like preposterous and silly on one hand, while also being like a potential sign of a sort of dangerous turn for the right at the other hand. And in the way that it's been like politicized by Democrats as well, it's become kind of like impossible to talk about it with nuance without sounding like you're one of these liberals that really supports Liz and Dick Cheney. Or you had infamously the other day, Pelosi and the Democrats inviting like Lin-Manuel Miranda in to do the like Hamilton song to commemorate it. It's becoming like difficult to talk about without being lumped into one of these categories. Have you found that difficult to thread that needle to talk about the potential like dangers of that situation while also not finding yourself going down that kind of path?
It's weird, right? Because there are so many images from that day that are like really dumb and silly, and then there are also like horrible, like visceral videos of like essentially like the murder of police officers, and like it was bloody and violent and awful and racist and like a nightmare. And then there's also the guy carrying the podium smiling, and it's like, how do these things all exist in this like really like nightmarish world? I don't know. Like, there are parts of it that you can make fun of because it was so stupid, and also the reaction to it on the right, especially, not just the Lin-Manuel Miranda on the left, which is like we're cringe, but like on the right, the way that they try to revise it, that's really funny to me. But at the same time, I do think it is like the seriousness of it is not just like how 4 police officers died, or 4 people died, including police officers, and like, which by the way is the same number of people who died in Benghazi, which like the right wing said was like the most important thing ever. So like there's a level of seriousness there, but also the way that it's obviously a harbinger of what's to come is even more serious. So like, if we're treating the end of democracy as serious, which I think we should, then January 6th does deserve to be talked about in a way that's like, this was just the beginning. And I think like when it happened, a lot of people were saying, this is what happens when you let someone like Donald Trump take over the party. And I was thinking at the time, like, no, this is like the beginning, and what's going to happen is they're going to do it correctly the next time. So I think that's the serious angle of it. But yeah, of course, like the other side of that coin is like, we should be making fun and bullying like neo-Nazis all the time, because that's what works. Like getting under their skin and shaming them and like dunking on them is like, I don't know, I don't have power, like I have Twitter, so like I'm gonna dunk on people and like hope that they get mad about it. Like I don't really know what to do other than like, you can only phone bank so many times for Democrats, and this feels like a I don't know, it's like a productive outlet to be like, Madison Cawthorn, like still saying like the election was stolen and we need to like overturn the next one, whatever. Like, yeah, we should be dunking on this guy. Or like Lauren Boebert, who is a absolutely crazy psycho. Like, these are the people that, you know how the right wing like is really good at picking the people in the Democratic Party who they know that like the moderate group will hate, like AOC, Maxine Waters, basically any like non-white woman. They can be like, look, this is the face of the left. I think we should be doing that to the right and saying like, this is the face of the right. And when we do it, it won't be a lie because they are those leaders. Like, Kevin McCarthy is Marjorie Taylor Greene. They believe the same things with like a few exceptions, and he takes his cues from her. So like, why don't we have that level of messaging and communication? Because I think that would be effective. When you see what these people are talking about openly, it's really crazy. Donald Trump left a video message for Ashley Babbitt, like on the woman who died in the insurrection because she was trying to insurrect. And she's like a martyr now on the right. She's a hero, even though she was storming the Capitol. And he left a video message on her birthday for her family. And like, that to me is an endorsement of what they did. And this was like barely covered by the press. It was like a few hours of like of journalists on Twitter being like, this is really interesting. And like the next day, it was practically gone. That should have been huge. Like, not just like a huge story, but like, this is the tone for which the party needs to be covered. The leader of the Republican Party endorsed the violence of the insurrection in a video message. And here's the reaction from other Republicans that we asked. But like, that did not happen. You didn't have that moment of like asking Mitch McConnell, what's your response to Donald Trump endorsing this or whatever? They just didn't do that. And I think there's a real disconnect there in the way that the left is covered versus the right.
Yeah, I mean, it also speaks to the level of which that like there's been serious consequences for people that took part in this January 6th Capitol riot, while there's been basically zero consequences for any of the actual powerful people that helped organize it and instigate these people, who many of whom seem like kind of like mentally unstable. And, you know, I almost feel bad for some of these folks that like got hoodwinked into participating in this and then got completely abandoned by the political and media leaders that then like completely threw them under the bus and then used them to kind of like fundraise and pretend to care about afterwards, while there's been no actual consequences for any of them. It seems also like one of the troubling things about the whole day as well, which is that, you know, I remember around the time that the election was happening, it seemed like the idea that Trump was going to contest the election results was always like out there. I think that's always what everyone expected to happen. And I think one of the main reasons that this thing didn't work out is because he didn't quite have the backing from the Republican political and media establishment, which I don't know if that would have been the case if the election had been closer. You know, if it had come down to one state, I think there would have been a lot more willingness by people in like the Republican Party establishment and in the media establishment also to go all in on this and go all in this, like the election was stolen idea, and then potentially like actually have the consequence that they wanted, which was to overturn the results. It's just like it was a little bit too far away for them to kind of put their necks out like that. And they kind of went ahead with the same strategy of insisting this at the same time. And that's what led to this kind of dichotomy between the sort of Republican establishment and the more Trumpist elements of it. But I don't think that's necessarily what we would have seen if the election had been closer. Okay. And that's something that I think has been underreported as well. I
think one of the retcons that's happened is that a lot of journalists now accept, and this is not me just musing, this is like, I've heard from, I can't obviously, I'm such a hypocrite, I can't say who, but like very like high up recognizable journalists have told me that like there was a legitimacy to challenging the results in the initial stages through the courts. Like that was like within Trump's right. And I think that is so insane, because when it was happening, all of us felt the same thing. Like you and me on the left and journalists were all of the same opinion, which was like, this is nuts. There is no validity to challenging this election. Like it was a blowout. It is over. And Donald Trump is clearly trying to overturn it by any means possible. He's doing it through the courts now because that's his like first thing, but that doesn't mean it's legitimate. And obviously, like, the media has to cover the court stuff because it's tangible news, and that's fine. But there was like a tone to it that was like, Donald Trump lost again, like a court like ruled against her, like 60 courts or whatever, and that's all very well and good. Since that has happened, and that was in like December or like November, December, and then part of January. Since that's happened, I think this feeling of like, well, what happened before January 6th was a legitimate way to contest the results, but January 6th was too far. We can't have that. And that's not true. Abusing the courts that way is not legitimate, and hoping that it goes to the Supreme Court, which was stacked by Donald Trump to give him the election, is also not legitimate. And I think it's dangerous the way that we might look back at those initial few weeks and those first couple of months when we were all like kind of very happy that Donald Trump was not the winner of the election, but also pretty nervous about what was going on, and viewing this whole like the way that Republicans would be like, I don't object to the, Mike Rounds, who's a senator nobody knows, who said it's legitimate for Donald Trump to exercise every right he has to challenge the election. Like, that is a seditionist comment. That is traitorous. I know I sound like, a lefty like resistor right now, but like, that is really bad and awful, and that senator should be barred from public discourse for supporting the big lie and trying to overturn the election. Instead, what happened to Mike Rounds was that because he later decided not to object to the certification of the votes, like, oh my God, what a fucking low bar, because he decided, no, it was legitimate, he's now one of these like lesser known democracy heroes. And he was on ABC's This Week today to talk about January 6th, to talk about the election, as if he didn't have any part in pushing the big lie. Obviously, he was also on Meet the Press because Meet the Press puts all these people on. But like, the way that he represents these kind of like, Bill Cassidy, he's another senator. Some of these like Tim Scott, who denied that Biden won the election for like 8 weeks. There's a lot of these senators in the Republican Party who were not like Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley, who were not pushing for like a physical insurrection, but still supported this illegitimate effort to overturn the election in the court. They have all been granted a pass by the mainstream media. And that to me is like extremely bad, because you're taking something that should be viewed as illegitimate and making it legitimate. Imagine if just one senator after the election had been like, I think Donald Trump should challenge the results. Like, we would cast that person aside and be like, this person's a psycho. But because all of the Republicans were saying it, we just accept it as like, well, no, it's part of the process and you have to go through the courts. And I think that's kind of nuts.
I think you could distinguish between, challenging or calling for a review of results, like if it's like within a recount threshold or if it's a tight race. That happens in elections. But what the Trump campaign and what Republicans at large push were, baseless allegations of voter fraud, switching votes, ballot harvesting, all these types of like sensationalized and ludicrous claims that they mounted these challenges on. So I think it's important, and you did that, but I think it's for people to understand, like there's a difference. You're not saying you can't just challenge any result of the election. It's just that when you're saying that, like, and they even like, there were some instances where they singled out like random people, like polling workers, and blaming them and basically accusing them of committing fraud, which led to like untold harassment of random, innocent, unsuspecting people. And there was recently even a story where somebody who had some like weird connection to Kanye went to somebody's house and tried to like pressure them and strong arm them into admitting to committing fraud and saying that they were going to, be in the news and be charged with things if they didn't within like 48 hours. Like, these are the types of things that the challenges relied on. It wasn't just they were exercising their legal, authority or ability. These were baseless, sensational claims.
This is not 500 votes in a county in Florida that it's unclear because of a loose piece of paper who they voted for, and we have to go through by hand and determine voter intent. It's not even close to what happened in 2000. This was Donald Trump saying there were ghosts who voted and corpses came out of the ground and cast 80 ballots each for Joe Biden, and then forcing the media to sanitize that with this language of like, President Trump is contesting the election results. Like, he really benefits, especially in hindsight, from this this like gross cleaning of what was really going on. And also, this is not like the people at Trump rallies don't care about like the nuance of the court system. They literally just want Trump to be president, and they're like, yeah, let's overturn it. Like, we want to throw Biden out. Like, they're not like, oh my gosh, there's so many court cases that we need to once we go through this process or whatever. Like, no, they're just like, make Donald Trump president, please. Like, that's what we want.
Some of them do say that, but then inevitably when these processes don't work and don't give them the results they want, they kind of just hand wave that away and be like, but still though.
I would encourage everyone to watch Jordan Klepper's interviews with Trump supporters at some of their like Stop the Steal rallies that are like great for not just comedy, but like showing how bad the logic is and how quickly these people are put in a position of contradicting themselves. And it's very, very satisfying. And really hard to do, like the way that Jordan does it. But when you see just how many people are believing this stuff just because they want to believe it, like they don't have any idea what like Dominion voting actually is. They just hear it from Tucker Carlson and they're like, sure, whatever.
Another element of it has been just this meme that has really taken hold on the right through after this process too, is just like delegitimizing and the idea of mail-in ballots, like just taking the idea that that's evidence for the fraud in and of itself. The fact that there was mail-in ballots that went in the direction that they didn't want, and just especially during this global health crisis, which of course like necessitated people to vote that way. And just creating this idea that the voting that took place by mail-in ballots is just somehow just doesn't count.
There's a real dangerous part of this also, which is that, you guys still there?
Yep.
Oh, I just heard a voice.
That was Elise popping back in.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a dangerous part of this also, which is a lot of the Republicans who I think the media has determined are not big liars and they can come on and talk about stuff. I'm thinking specifically of like Tate Reeves, the governor of Mississippi, is a mail-in ballot like truther. Like, he thinks mail-in ballots are voter fraud, and he said that, and that's crazy. That's bad. That is a version of the big lie. But because he's not physically saying Donald Trump won the election and Joe Biden stole it from him, he's kind of like allowed into the discourse and pushing this like mail-in voter fraud garbage. So that's really bad, because that means that has become like a salient thing to talk about when there's like no examples of voter fraud at all, except for like 14 cases of it in the Villages of people trying to vote for Donald Trump more than once. Like, it's not legitimate to give these people a platform to say that mail-in ballots are somehow delegitimate or are a Democratic conspiracy or whatever. And a lot of the people who, like, you might at first blush think, oh, this guy thinks the election was real, he's a Republican, he's one of the good ones, wait until they talk about mail-in votes and how they're trying to like curtail that and how they don't want ballot drop boxes. Like, then you start to realize, no, this is all part of the same conspiracy to stop Democrats from voting. And that's like the worst thing you can have in a crumbling democracy, is a party taking away the right to vote and the media kind of accepting it as just like, this is just like the way that the process works. And it might just be a little bit different than what you were used to.
Well, Matt, I know you don't have too much time left, but I mean, I think this is a good question to leave it on for both of you. Actually, I'm interested in hearing answers to this, which is that, as we know, Democrats have like proposed an actual legislation to ensure that people have their voting rights intact and that they won't be able to succumb to these sort of anti-democratic efforts to restrict people's ability to vote. And we've seen throughout the last year kind of an unwillingness to break these kind of norms, whether it comes to like the Senate parliamentarian or the filibuster or changing the Supreme Court around in an effort to actually pass their agenda, which would help them, not lose further elections. And now you have in the last couple of weeks, Chuck Schumer saying, we are going to possibly change these rules about the filibuster and what that means and how many votes you need in order to pass legislation in order to get through this voting rights legislation. So I'm just wondering, given the events of the last year, for both of you, what's your confidence level that they actually are going to go through with drastically changing the rules in an effort to pass this agenda, and whether that's going to be extended to other parts of their agenda, which has completely stalled out and is possibly failing at this point?
I'll let Jordan go first because I want to react to what he's going to say.
I mean, I don't see Manchin and Sinema getting out of the way. Like, I think their roles are to obstruct and block everything until their terms are up, and then they're going to have cushy jobs waiting for them outside of Congress. I think it's I don't know. I don't even know if I want to say it's good that they're saying it and talking about it, because I just don't think anything's going to change. I think Sinema will posture as caring about these issues, but will insist that we need to do it the right way, and she doesn't want to be the person responsible for nuking the filibuster, at least on this issue. But separately from that, I mean, they're also in the way of reconciliation and everything in that with a ton of climate spending, we're seeing now child tax credits expire because they didn't renew them, and people who had benefited from that last year are going to see a higher tax bill this year. Across the board, I think there's a ton of unaddressed issues that those two senators are standing in the way of, and we're not going to see any real change. Oh my God, my fire alarm's going off in my building.
Well, I'll take it from here.
Shit. It's the Secret Service. You said too much.
Sorry. Yeah, I know.
You said too much. You're being silent. You're going to shut down.
That's actually that's the decorum alarm going off, and anytime decorum is violated, it must be
our norms. We must preserve them.
I was going to say very few things make me happier than when a norm is breached, and the idea of reforming the filibuster just to make it so that everyone can vote is the greatest norm disrespecting move, which I think makes it impossible that it will happen. I think the weird establishment lovers, institution respecters, they love norms so much. The way that when Biden appeared at the Kennedy Center honors and these people lost their minds. They were like, it's been so long since a president has granted this institution the gift of his existence or whatever. Come on. What year are you living in? So I think they love the institution too much to do anything, because it's for them, it's almost like Donald Trump didn't exist for 4 years. Donald Trump was not a norm breaker. He was a norm obliterator. And the way that his atrocities were framed as another norm busted by Donald Trump, that is the big crime. And I think the establishment Dems kind of are of the same mind. That's the Senate is the greatest deliberative body or whatever garbage they tell themselves. Yeah. So I think it has to be seen through that respect. And I think they've kind of said as much. I don't really believe Chuck Schumer, because there was this one moment where Trump was holding up everything over DACA, and Schumer was like, we are negotiating with Donald Trump and we believe the president is acting in good faith. And I was like, you idiot, have you met this guy?
Come on, Chuck. Yeah, come on, man.
So I think it's great, it's aspirational, but the norms must be preserved.
Yeah. Well, and this is always the moment where I ask myself, are they being hamstrung by these kind of right-wing Democrats, or do they just want the credit for saying they want to do these big things without actually having to do the things?
Exactly.
That's always the question I end up asking myself, and more I find myself leaning towards answer number 2. But
time will tell, I guess, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Matt, thanks very much for joining the program. It was really great to speak to you about all this stuff.
I took off a solid hour of tweeting to do this, so I really hope you guys are respectful of my
Absolutely.
sacrifice.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you so much. Thank you for saying that. Thank you. No, thanks for letting me talk about the things that I obviously am obsessed about. And
of course, yeah,
video games, D&D, and Tucker Carlson.
Yeah. Do you just want to let everyone know where they can find you online if they want to get more of these takes?
Yeah, just go to my Twitter at Matt Negrin, and then please, if you haven't, check out the Daily Show Monuments thing I was talking about. If you just search Daily Show Monuments, the hashtag on social media, it'll come up, that there's a lot there. I think there's
Great.
a few good Instagram stories of that also that are really funny. So yeah,
cool.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure to talk to you, and we'll talk to you later. Take care.
Awesome. See ya.
Thank you for listening to The Insurgents. Please remember to subscribe over at theinsurgents.substack.com. Find the podcast on all your favorite podcast apps, and please remember to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It's very helpful, and we appreciate it a lot. But please, again, don't mention Ken Klippenstein in the review. He is banned from the show. It's a lifetime ban, so please do not mention him in the review. And we'll be back later this week with more of the content that you know and love. Goodbye.